Hello everybody and welcome to the fourth round of the Easy Motorcycle Spares GT3 Championship here from Barcelona-Catalunya for the fourth round of the championship. The first, though, of our endurance rounds this season. First of only two. Next one coming in just a couple of weeks, in fact, at Mugello. But it's a 90-minute timed race tonight for both the first time this season and indeed the penultimate as we embark on a new sort of format, I should say, for this championship. It's myself, Ian O'Leary, and Jack Cole alongside me for this broadcast here tonight, and good to be alongside you once again, Jack, for another round of this season. We've got 90 minutes of racing. It's a long way around here, and the historic layout as well, although I have to say it's being used more and more in the real world as well, especially the less tight hairpin down there at turn number 10, and even missing out that chicane at the end of the lap as well. It's becoming much more common to use this layout around this circuit, and it does help the final part of the circuit to flow just a little bit better. I guess the downside, as you can see on the track map, it almost makes this circuit completely symmetrical.
G'day Ewan, hello to everybody at home as well. It's great to be back in the booth, and you are absolutely spot on. That historic layout is, yeah, it really does almost look like a mirror image, but I really think it will deliver us some very, very exciting racing tonight. My concern with Catalunya, and we saw this, was it only last week, I'm pretty sure, we were covering the Light Sim Racing V8s here at Catalunya. And those chicanes, that tighter turn as well, really do make life difficult, particularly when you've got such a big field of drivers. You know, it's not such a massive deal when you're talking, you know, iRacing official events with maybe 10 to 15 cars in a race, but when you're talking up near a grid of 30 like we do have tonight, it would get very, very congested. And across the opening, 5 laps or so of an endurance race, you don't really want to see too many incidents coming along to set you back any further. It's a long way to go tonight. I'm sure the drivers will be taking care, but of course you do want to get off to the best start you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see how they get on here tonight. Let's just have a look at the championship standings coming into tonight, because this is interesting. Still, with the drop weeks applied, 2 of them now applied to the worst 2 rounds. So this effectively still, as it was last week, everyone's best round score, if you like. And Dylan Shepherd's still got 2 300-point hauls. But Sandown last week, Reese Wakefield managed to get 297 points in one round, and so is only 3 points behind now. Ocean Colangelo, Thomas Searle have both managed 279 as a best, 3 points further behind Daniel McCrone, so really no difference in the top 5. Alexander Bird just outside that now with Chris Miller, Liam Jensen and Michael Whiting tied on points for Kane Ryder on 250, rounding out the top 10. You can see the rest on your screen at the moment. It's very, very congested indeed, and as I say, it just makes up their best round score from the season so far. Which is how they've been ordered so far. A whopping 47 drivers have managed to score points here this season. I can see 30 in the field at the moment. Only 27 of them have actually set times in the qualifying session, which is indeed coming to an end right now. And Reese Wakefield looks like he's taken the pole position here. It's been interesting these last couple of weeks trying to decipher the championship standings, because as I say, it is still just their best round score, as it were, and Dylan Shepherd is always going to win that battle and has done since round number 1. However, Reese Wakefield beginning to make some moves. He scored 297 points last week and looks like he's taken pole position here. If he could win this race with Dylan Shepherd seemingly absent again, then maybe we've got a different look to this championship compared to what we thought we had after the first 2 rounds of the championship.
Yeah, I was just noting that the absence of Shepherd again this week, a very, very notable one. And we were talking last week that it was going to be a very difficult opportunity. Actually, just getting some updates from Mitch Curry. We've got some issues with the drop rounds and the way they've been applied. Apparently there is only 1 drop round, so those standings are a little bit out of whack, which does bode well for Reese Wakefield, perhaps a little less well for Dylan Shepherd if he indeed is not going to be here tonight. He's already used that one drop round, and so to have him out again tonight, if he is planning on seeing out the rest of this season, wow, it just got a lot more difficult, didn't it?
Yeah, hopefully he is planning on seeing out the season, but yeah, that does make it a lot more difficult. That means in effect that Reece Wakefield is actually only 24 points behind, and tonight he needs to finish 45th, i.e. he just needs to start the race, because there are 45 people in the field, so yeah, he's going to overtake Dylan Shepherd. Now, he's not definitely going to take the championship lead. I mean, the likes of Colangelo and Searle and McCrone and so on are pretty close behind, and could disrupt that, but it looks like Wakefield is going to take charge of this championship from this point onwards. He's only just about taken pole position though in front of Danny Davison in a field where 5 of the top 6 are Corvettes, and then the next 7 in a row are Mustangs. So it's pretty uniform across the front of the field. In fact, only with the exception of one driver, only Corvette and Mustang in the top 16. Jeremy Washington, the only driver not in either of those manufacturers to get up in the top 13 throughout that session. Warm-up is now just going to begin, by the way, so I'll tell you just briefly about, and there's the qualifying results, so I'll just go through them in a bit more detail. 63 thousandths of a second between Wakefield and Davison, with Washington the only non-Mustang or Corvette inside the top 13, as I say. Max Booster 4th and 5th with Kane Ryder and Daniel McCrow, with Thomas Searle then in 6th place. Liam Tipping begins a Koala Cartel quartet, whatever the word is for that.
I don't actually know what
Liam Jensen and Thomas Cool. Is it quartet? I think it is.
I don't know what we'd refer to a group of koalas as when it comes to that. They don't generally mob together like that. So I can only assume that these guys have tied those cars together for their qualifying lap, because that is almost unheard of to have 4 cars qualifying that closely together.
Google says it's a colony of koalas.
A colony,
so,
okay. So a koala cartel, a koala colony. They could have gone with colony. I guess cartel's got that bit of an edge to it, doesn't it?
But yeah, I mean, this is the problem with the internet. I've just scrolled down a bit further, and then there's another website. There is no official collective now for koalas. Well, fine, whatever.
Okay.
Anyway,
well then.
You can see so many conflicting things these days. Anyway, Troy McGuire is 11th. Then the last driver within a second of pole is Chris Croat. Then it's Chris Lashbrook in 13th position. Patrick Frame then is the sort of next of the line of drivers who who continue indeed, this time in Corvettes. Then Mitch Curry and Chris Miller round off those. And then Reece Gardner, who's in a Mercedes, exactly the same time as Chris Miller. James Doheny, Alex Cato and Mick Poley round out the top 20. Outside the top 20, a little bit further down, are a few more people, but yes, we'll see them in a sec. But yeah, that's where they all are in the qualifying session. Next week, by the way, just to bring you up to... Oh, there's the rest of them. Trent Thomas is also there with a time. James Bunker, Dan Bartush, Lucas Baker, Cooper Field, Brian East, Christian Tatchenko, and then the non-qualifiers who were there. Scott Stevens joined quite late, but Ben Keat there decided not to qualify in that session. I think there might be one more a bit further down as well, I might be wrong, but further down the field, perhaps not qualifying at the end of that session. So joining quite late actually, and that maybe played a role with the with the back end of the qualifying order there. Sebring is next week, by the way, in terms of the calendar. So that will be a double alternate feature, as it's now called. The super sprints have been ditched after the Algarve round, and it's now just 2 races of sort of middling length, 20 laps each, as opposed to one quite short race, really quite short race at Sandown like last week, and then one really quite longer race, just 2 20-lap races. Then another one of the endurance rounds at Mugello before I think we get to our week off after that. Yeah, we do, February 18th. Then it's Adelaide for another feature round, double alternate feature at Hockenheim the week after that, and Bathurst and Monza feature rounds round off the season. So We've still got a long way to go here this season, some iconic circuits to come as well, but this is the point at which we've used every format, and after next week we're halfway as well, so this season really flying along.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think Adelaide will be a very, very interesting one. We've seen a fair bit of supercar action there. It's not surprising to have seen the supercars jump straight on that. It's, of course, a historic track as far as supercar racing goes, but to see some GT3s get pushed around there is going to be very, very different. I suspect those curbs will absolutely not tolerate being touched by a GT3 car. So if there's a round to watch, I reckon it's going to be round 7, February 25th. Put that one in your calendars, folks, because if you are the sort of person who likes to see a safety car out on track, then I reckon that's going to be the week for it.
Yeah, maybe. It's quite a tight place to race these, but there you go. All should be good. Not sure whether this is normal, but Josh Harris and Nathan Allen in the race control team, as far as I can see, have both set times in warm-up.
Well, they've got to get out and warm the tyres up on the safety car. Nothing wrong with that.
It's going to get quite cold again when they sat down pit lane for ages waiting for there to be a safety car. But
look, I think as a safety car driver, you've got to take the opportunity when you find it to actually get out there and turn some laps, because a lot of the time you'll sit there waiting to get out and lead that pack, and it won't actually happen. I am all for them using these warm-up periods to get in there and actually, just have a bit of fun.
Yeah, maybe that's all it is, but anyway, this is the starting grid. They're ready for tonight's round of the Easy Motorcycle Spares GT3 Championship from Catalunya, and it's Reese Wakefield who starts from the front in front of Danny Davison. Jeremy Washington, the only non-Corvette Mustang, in the top 16 in third, with Kane Ryan and Danny McCrone running out the top 5 rather for Team Max Boots. Thomas Searle alongside McCrone, with Liam Tipping and James Doyle on row 4. It's Liam Jensen and Thomas Cool then rounding out the top 10. Troy Maguire is 11th in front of Chris Croak, with Chris Lashbrook and Patrick Frame on row 7. Mitch Curry and Chris Miller round out that Corvette Mustang monopoly. It's Reece Gardner who's next to James O'Hardy. Two different manufacturers there, with Alex Cato and Mick Poley rounding out the top 20. Trent Thomas is 21st in front of James Bunker, with Dan Bartos and Lucas Baker on row 12. Cooper Field and Brian East next ahead of Christian Tatchenko, and the non-qualifiers, Scott Stevens and Ben Keat. That is it as far. I thought I saw another driver join, but apparently I did not. 29 should start, or hopefully start anyway, this race here today. It's a long run down in towards turn number 1 here at this circuit, so one of the more important starts of the season coming up.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and a 90-minute race is a long one, but don't discount just how important the opening couple of laps are. They really do set the tone and set the rhythm for the rest of your race, and these drivers will be looking to get any advantage that they can early on, because it will all come to fruition in about 90 minutes time. A couple of seconds from a good start here would be the dream for a lot of these drivers. And I think for the likes of Wakefield, he's going to want to set a pretty early hot pace and try and really establish a solid lead. He needs all the points he can get.
Absolutely. Let's see what happens here from Catalunya as the lights come on in the Easy Motorcycle Spares GT3 Championship. Oh, a non-stop pretty much there from Jeremy Washington from third place. He qualified so well, but he drops back immediately here, as immediately McCrone and Ryder get either alongside or past him on the run down towards turn 1. Reece Wakefield's going to lead the field in front of Danny Davison. McCrone with a great start to get up into third place. Washington struggling to hold on to fourth. It's Liam Tipping, in fact, who's trying to take that position away from him. Kane Ryder is too far away, and Tipping has to just back out of it there. A spin meantime for James Doyle through turn 3. The only casualty of the first three corners is James Doyle, who spins off to the outside of the road.
Yeah, I'm surprised it took that long, honestly. It was 3, 4, 5. Well, we've already got more contact there as well. It looks like there's that Mick Poley getting caught up in it as well. It's I'm surprised that these guys are pushing so hard, even with the advantage that does come from getting out there in front of this pack. We're seeing a lot of contact happening on. Patrick Frame has dropped way down through the order as he's run off track. We'll have to go back and have a look at that. Reece Wakefield, he's had the dream start, out to a second already.
Yeah, he has had a very good start and is running away at the front of the field. Lots of battling down in towards turn number 10 here with Jensen and Ken Ryder, for example, who are pretty close for 6th position in the field. Ryder holds the inside line through the left-hander, and he will keep that position for now. Side by side, a bit further behind there. James O'Hardy has made a good start here, and Mitch Curry is under pressure from him through the final sector. Although O'Hardy not able to get past on that occasion. So across the line. And it's 1.5 seconds for Reece Wakefield. Some distance he's got over the rest of the field. Danny McCrone's up 2 places from where he started. Liam Tipping is up 2 as well. Liam Jensen's up 2 as well. Nobody inside the top 10 though has gained more than 2 positions on that opening lap.
No, it's for all of the goings on. There's really only been a couple of drivers that have benefited significantly from it. So Harney and Polly have had a great start, up 6 and 7 respectively. Chris Miller down by 2. Reece Gardner's found himself running very, very slow out of that corner as he dropped back down to 21st. But for the bulk of these drivers, they've only picked up a couple of spots through some of that early. Look, chaos may be a strong word, but it was definitely a very aggressive opening to this race from a couple of those drivers. Something that is worth noting, take a look at time of day here. It is late afternoon. If we've set this up correctly, my understanding is that we'll be finishing pretty much just as it starts to get dark, although I'm not sure that the sun's going to hang around all that long. I think we might be seeing the headlights come on a little bit sooner than was originally anticipated.
Oh yeah, I don't know what the time is. I've got to say, but or indeed the date. But yes, let's see what light levels we're going to have at the end of the day. What time is it? And what date is it? What's going on?
It's just before 5 p.m. And it is set to January, which means it will of course be winter. So you'd expect a fairly early sunset. Spain Catalonia is a little further south than some of the tracks that we could be visiting in the Northern Hemisphere, so might get a little bit of a longer evening, but it's not going to be much. Certainly an hour and a half is going to see us into some dark periods, which will be always a good bit of fun. Don't mind seeing that.
Yeah, so sunset is just after 6 p.m. tonight in Barcelona, so if it is today, then that will be the
20 odd minutes of this race then.
So, yeah, something like that, and indeed, if it's even earlier, the sunset will be even earlier as well, so there we go. It may well be dark before the end. Side by side, a bit further behind. Patrick Frame, by the way, had an incident on lap number 1. I think it was down towards turn 4. He's a long way back now, though, and on the inside, Lucas Baker trying to take this position away from him on the way down the inside there. Still around the outside here. Frame is going to have to brake early there, and just took back in. Lots of gravel on the circuit there through turn 7 as well, as Frame tries to get the exit and run up towards turn 9. You can't help but feel this is a bit of an unhelpful battle for these two at the moment, but far more unhelpful, I suppose you could argue, as Frame's incident early on, which has dropped him back in this group in the first place.
Take a look at the iRacing Designs replay. This is the opening lap, and is there a nudge, or has he done it to himself? This corner, notorious, just a little bit of grass and just runs it wide. But given it's the opening lap, look at how many positions that's cost him.
Yeah, he drops right the way to the back of the field. This is the leader. Well, these are the leaders. Wakefield is away from the rest of the field at the moment. Danny Davison was very, very close to him in qualifying, but even in 5 minutes here, Wakefield has managed to stretch out a 1.5 second gap. The train behind is from Daniel McCrone on backwards, really, and includes everybody, perhaps down even to Chris Miller, who's in 16th position at the moment. That'll be 14 drivers involved in that, by the way, if indeed we do count that as everybody. Cattle has a look down the inside of Sohani, and there's going to be so many battles like that throughout this group.
There absolutely will be, and we're not going to see them stay quite this close together for the full hour and a half, I'm sure, but this is where the opportunity really lies to get your nose out in front and to really push on and start to make something of these opening stages. It may only be a position here, a position there, but some of these drivers will already be thinking fuel strategy. We know that they've got a limited tank capacity here. They're not running a full tank, so given that it's a half tank restriction, you'd usually get about an hour of racing out of a GT3 tank. So to cut that in half, you're probably expecting around about a half hour of racing. So these guys will have to really manage the fuel to make sure they do keep this to what should be a two-stop race.
Yeah, indeed should be.
I say should be.
So,
I mean, that's pending, of course, no incidents and no major issues along the way. But look, all you can do is put in a decent plan and hope that it actually comes off.
I don't think I can see it being done on one stop, to be honest, even if we have a long safety car. So Kettle and Maguire, meantime, get past Solhani, who made some great places in the early laps here, but has just lost a couple of them. It seemed to have a slowdown there, based on the tower. So just giving that up on the front straight there isn't really many better places to do it without tripping over the guys behind you, so you can understand why. Troy Maguire goes down the inside meantime of Kettle and gets straight through there. Does Maguire, so that's nicely done for the Mustang, and he goes up into 13th position as well. A few changes happening, but most of them outside the top 10 in the lower order.
Although we do see Kane Ryder getting past. It's Liam tipping again. I feel like we talk about tipping every single week. Either he's having the absolute worst run of luck and we just happen to catch all of it, or he is really pushing the absolute limits of grip that's available to him in that Mustang, because I can't recall a round so far this season where we haven't seen him off the side of a track somewhere.
Well, this is side by side with Rich Curry for 10th position. Meantime, he's got the outside though for turn 12. Not the ideal place to be, especially when the next two go to the right as well. He's tried to be pushed out there, but he's holding firm on the outside line. Curry, though, still on the inside as well. Into the final turn. Now, finally, tipping will have to back out, and Mick Poley there wanted to get involved, and tipping there very nearly turned across him completely. It's a good job he turned across him, though, because he's now into the slipstream of the Corvette just in front, and on his way towards turn 1 in the slipstream. He's on the outside line in towards turn 1. He's going to squeeze Curry. There's contact, and tipping comes off second best. Curry holds on, or at least gets 10th place, however you want to see it, and tipping not able to stay there. Curry's still got a slow down penalty though, and so that will have to be given up, and maybe this position will have to be given up here in the middle sector.
Yeah, you'd have to think Curry at this point is going to try and burn it off through these corners where there's not an opportunity for tipping to get past, but it is going to build up a real conga line behind that Corvette, and you can already see it starting to form up. It's not just tipping and Polly's got to watch for now. All of a sudden, Maguire, Cattle, Salhani and Miller are all into this as well. So we've got a really sizable battle group starting to build up in the mid-pack here, and Mitch Curry is going to have to really get his head down if he wants to pull away from it.
Well, you might find it easier if they fight themselves, and here comes Troy Maguire, in fact, who's with Mick Poley here on the way towards turn 10. There's a chance here, and he does not go down the inside on that occasion. Would have been a bit of a lunge, but not able to. But this is perhaps I mentioned the group earlier on, but there were some pretty big gaps actually in that group from 2nd to 16th, as there would be in such a large group. This one is a lot more compact from 10th to 16th, and it still contains 7 cars.
It is, and I think really it's got to break up as these guys start to fight it out here. There's not a lot between them. One of the interesting parts of this, we did talk a little bit earlier around the historic layout missing those couple of tight turns, those couple of chicane corners. It really does make a difference to the ability to undertake a pass here, and I think tonight we'll see is a lot more reliance on that slipstream rather than getting a pass done under brakes when you don't have the heavy braking zone into the tighter left-hander at the giant Catalunya sign there, and then of course that chicane where you can try and barge through. I think it will really come down to who can stay right on the tail of the car in front, and who perhaps doesn't have the intestinal fortitude to really see it out. It does take a lot of trust in the driver ahead to hang with them and to stay right on the rear bar through a lot of these turns. But that's exactly where you need to be on the exit onto the straights here at Catalunya if you do want to keep up and indeed get yourself alongside, ready to make a pass.
Yeah, absolutely. Can be a really difficult place to overtake. This is an IRAC designed replay of Lucas Baker, who's been hit. Oh, was he hit there?
Bit of that code, maybe.
I decided he'd been hit before it actually happened, and then I wasn't sure. But it might have just been a deceptive camera angle, and he got absolutely smashed. But anyway, he's dropped down to the back of a three-driver group now. Tachenko and Stevens just up in front. Benke, by the way, didn't take the start of this race as far as I'm aware, so no retirements yet. Everybody who started this race, all 28, still in the race, which is good. Even James Doyle, who pitted after 4 laps, and wasn't he the one who spun on lap number 1, I think, through turn number 3? Didn't see how it happened, actually. But he's made an early stop and is a long way back now. It's probably going to be 3 pit stops for him, I would have thought. Maybe 2, but yeah, but that was a very early stop, so yeah, it'll have to be 3 pit stops. It's just going to send him a long way back.
This was James Doyle's incident earlier on. Just a little bit of side-to-side contact. It's enough on those cold tyres to send him a long way off. It's that damage there to the rear. I suspect, and that's done actually quite a bit of damage. And one of the things that we can't always tell is whether or not iRacing has decided that rear wing is actually still attached. We're seeing it on our camera as being there, but entirely possible that it's actually come off. And that's the sort of thing with the GT3 cars. If you lose that rear wing, you absolutely have to go into the pit straight away. You cannot keep driving them without a rear wing. It's just no way to be competitive.
Well, I would say therefore the rear wing was still attached, because he did carry on for 4 laps, but in the end the other damage was probably too much. Tipping down the inside of Curry again, in towards turn 10. Oh, tight on the inside there. Curry doing a good job of defending, not by protecting the inside line, because he knows that the next 3 corners are all to the right, but well, 4 if you count the start of the next lap, and that means you've got to go around the outside through turn 10, but just squeeze the driver on the inside as much as is possible there. You do run a bit of a risk, but he put his trust in Tipping there that he wasn't going to spin him around, and so Curry there did a good job just closing that one off, making sure Tipping couldn't use the inside space, use that space on the inside too much. On the run down towards turn 1, Curry confirms it again. Nearly 15 minutes in, he's still holding on to this top 10 place.
He has managed to build himself just a little bit of a gap as some of these cars behind him in what we did see as a pretty large pack have started to separate back out again into their own little one-on-one battles. Mick Polly and Troy Maguire really locked into this. They've been fighting for a good couple of laps now. I think Maguire's probably got just a little bit of extra speed at the moment, but getting past Polly is never going to be easy. He is an absolute master behind the wheel of a Porsche, so tonight will be no exception. He's going to battle very, very hard for 12th spot, even though we've still got an hour and 15 to go here tonight. Something that may have escaped your attention, folks, take a look at the top of the timing tower. Reese Wakefield has gone into fuel save mode, I think. Danny Davison is back within 8/10 now. Unless there's been a major issue somewhere for Wakefield, he's really backed off the pace.
Well, see what this lap time is like, but the previous one to this was a personal best from Reese Wakefield, so that doesn't scream fuel saving to me, but let's see what happens at the end of this lap and what the time says. It's definitely notable that Danny Davison is getting on terms here, and he's less than a second behind now his fellow Corvette leading this race. Yeah, another personal best there. Wow. Davison just going quicker, I think, at this stage in the race, because yeah, last 2 laps in a row now, that is for personal best for Reese Wakefield.
Well, I will put the foot firmly in my mouth then, and we'll carry on watching this one with great interest. Davison maybe just been hiding a little bit of pace from us so far this season.
Very flexible, if you can do that.
Oh, look.
Meantime,
Yoga, mate. What's it all about?
Jensen down the inside of Kane Ryder, who's actually served a slowdown while in this battle, so that might not have been an accident. Side by side into turn 4, he's too far on the outside, and that's a good dive actually from Jensen. Oh, and he covered him off on the exit as well. Is he going to protect the inside? Oh my goodness, Kane Ryder's going to feel like he's being blocked every which way, but and I suppose he is in a sense, but absolutely legally in that in that vision there, because Jensen protected the inside line through into turn 4, then he just squeezed him out wide when he needed to, brought it back to the inside when he needed to, then defended the inside at turn 4, at 5 rather as well, and parked it on the apex. Great driving here from Liam Jensen, and he's inside the top 5 now as well, in front of Kane Ryder. So, oh no, he's going to get hit though. He's going to get hit. Kane Ryder, not intentionally, hits Liam Jensen in towards turn 10. It's a remarkably quick recovery, in fact, from Jensen. He does drop to 8th place, but Kane Ryder there smashes into the back of Liam Jensen.
Yeah, I think lucky it was dead on. That's probably what saved too much of an issue for Jensen. He's lost a couple of spots, but Ryder, of course, in redressing that, has lost even more, and he finds himself now caught up in this group all of a sudden. Liam Tipping and Kane Ryder now head the group of Polly and Maguire, with Mitch Curry starting to almost pull away in the distance. We might actually see Troy Maguire get the move done. He's got a good bit of pace out of that final turn. He's going to be on the inside for turn 1. Can he get him under brakes? Polly's going to have to do a lot of work to stay alongside here into turns 2 and 3, but Troy Maguire gets it done far too easily. Mick Polly probably making the better long-term decision rather than battling side by side at such an early stage. Just give it up for now and stick with him if you can. There's a long way to go in this race.
Yeah, it has surprised me quite a lot actually, how much they've been battling here amongst themselves early on, because as you say, they're really hurting one another by doing this, and it is only extending the gap to the others out front. Well, maybe they decide it doesn't really matter because the guys at the front are getting away anyway. First penalty of the day coming in, by the way, for Chris Lashbrook for an incident on into turn 4 on lap 7. That's a 5-second time penalty for making contact and spinning Lucas Baker. Not sure whether we saw that. It feels like we did. I have a memory of that. Well, maybe I don't.
This is where we weren't actually sure if there's contact. There must have been contact there. It was ever so subtle, but at that sort of angle, enough to turn Baker relatively easily. And yeah, not particularly surprised, really, to see a penalty for that one.
I don't think he was actually that subtle. I think the camera angle has masked the severity of that. I think that was pretty obvious for race control with all the angles, but obviously they'll be looking in the chase cam or whatever, and that looks horrible on the broadcast. So there we go. There you go. That's a nicer one to look at, and bang, there you go. Maybe it wasn't as much contact as I thought, but he certainly does hit him, and it's a minor infringement in fairness, so it's only a 5-second time penalty.
And over the course of an hour and a half, 5 seconds, I tell you what, you'll lose more than that through some of these battles we're starting to see just carry on. It's got to be frustrating for some of these drivers. They can see the next group starting to get away as Kane Ryder comes under attack from Liam Tipping, who's going to be up the inside here. I don't think he's quite going to be alongside, but he is going to push the issue.
It's the other way around here. Tipping is serving a slowdown, and he's trying to do it while not losing places, but he's not succeeding at the moment. Kane Ryder gets past. Now Maguire's alongside, and he's finally cleared it, but he's now on the outside line for turn 5 and 6 here, and he does get in front of Maguire at least. I feel like he was given a bit of a break there by Maguire, who might have just let off and let him in, but trying to serve a slowdown while not losing positions. I'm afraid it hadn't quite worked on that occasion, and Kane Ryder now back in front of him again. You've got to just try and avoid those slowdowns if at all possible. I must admit, I didn't think it was going to be as much of a factor as it's turned out to be in the first 20 minutes.
No, the slowdowns here, although there are a good number of opportunities to pick one up, they don't tend to be incredibly harsh slowdowns. You're not serving 3 seconds, 4 seconds plus, which is the case at some other circuits. It tends to be relatively small slowdowns, and you do have quite a lot of opportunity to burn them off in such a way that it's almost impossible for someone to pass you. Now, it really does depend on your vehicle positioning when you start to try and burn that slowdown off, and unfortunately for Tipping, just found himself on the wrong side of the track to really do that effectively this time around.
Yes, he started off well, but couldn't hold on for too long. Here is Daniel McCarran versus Jeremy Washington, by the way. Good recovery for Washington, really. He could have really let that start get on top of him, actually, and lost a lot of positions early on in this race. But after an initial launch, which was pretty terrible, I thought he was going to drop at least to outside the top 5, if not worse. But he managed to recover, and he kept some positions through the opening corners. There goes Jensen down the side of Chris Croat. You imagine Liam Jensen is going to spend a few minutes here recovering some of the positions lost in that contact with Kame Ryder, who, by the way, has received a 5-second time penalty for that incident that they had down here towards turn 10. I guess race control recognising that it wasn't intentional, but he was still at fault there, Kame Ryder, and so we'll have a small penalty for that.
Yeah, it was not the best of incidents in terms of awareness. You don't want to see people running up the rear end of another car, but these things happen, and again, relatively minor. I think Jensen actually did a pretty huge favour for Ryder there by how easily he recovered it. That's probably what's kept it from being a more significant penalty.
Yeah, maybe. It's difficult to say for sure, but that might be at play there. Kame Ryder just get past Mitch Curry here, and it looks like Liam Tipping wants to follow through. Curry would rather try and retake that position, but it's Tipping who's on the way in towards turn 1 challenging. That's quite late on the brakes from Curry there, and he's going to be out of shape then through 2 and then 3. Tipping, might have turned a bit too early there for him to really benefit from the exit, or has he got it right? Coming out of turn number 3. He's got a decent run. He's still to the inside before Curry can get there, and here he comes, inside line for Tipping. That's a lot of space given by Curry. I think that was an error there, going in too deep, because that was way too much space given. Tipping tries to come across him. He tries to close the door, and he does get into the top 10 there. That was risky at one stage there. He looked like he was going to turn across when he wasn't clear, but he just about was, and he gets into the top 10, although he's getting flashed at by Mitch Curry there.
Yeah, I don't think Curry would have appreciated the very, very early attempt at getting across that inside line from Tipping. There wasn't much in it, but of course it doesn't take much contact to do some damage to these cars. That opening complex of corners here at Catalunya is one of my favourite ones to watch. That turn 1, 2, 3 complex into that long right-hander. I think it's actually a lot more challenging than people realise when they do look at it. It's one of those sets of corners where it can look like you've got a really fast line coming into turn 1, but you have to really manage the car back across in time for turn 2 and 3, and you saw that from Mitch Curry. Even though he was heavy under brakes into turn 1 and really looking to try and make that move on Ryder, it put him all out of shape for the next couple of turns, and now it's going to start to really cost him some spots, because he finds himself behind Tipping, and with Troy Maguire looking to take advantage here as well.
Absolutely. Oh, that's quite deep from Tipping there, and this is going to get very awkward now. Troy Maguire looks to the inside. It's not quite alongside, though, in time for turn number 3. So Maguire not able to get past. He'll have another look here, but he won't go for it. Nearly 25 minutes in here, and we're not far away from finding out how far these cars can go on fuel. Can they go another 20 minutes and make this a one-stop race? Is anybody even trying to? I highly doubt it, but we'll find out in the next few moments, because I'd imagine we'll see some pit stops pretty much bang on the half hour.
That'd be a phenomenal effort. I cannot see how that's even possible to consider. No. The amount of time you're going to save by dropping it to one pit stop here. Let's assume for a moment that you could get the fuel usage down that low. The amount of time you're going to save by doing it is going to be absolutely eclipsed by the amount of time that you lose on each lap, and we're not seeing that here. You know, some of the slowest lap times we've seen are still within about 2 seconds of the leaders. You know, when we look towards the back of the group, you're kind of seeing 141.5s or thereabouts. The front end 139.6s. So there's not enough separation there to suggest that anyone's managed to find a way to milk that much distance out of these GT3s. And of course, it's not much fun just punting them around at such a low pace. It's really pedestrian, and really you want to go flat out at the straights here at Catalunya. It's just too tempting.
Well, if we're on a 50% fuel limit as we are in this series, I'm not sure how many amongst you have done endurance racing or whatever in iRacing, but the equivalent of taking your GT3 car an hour and a half, because you'd be able to do, if we had a zero fuel restrictions, then you'd be able to do the whole of this race without a pit stop, which would just be ludicrous. So yeah, it's going to be a two-stop race here today. That was Troy Maguire getting in the mirrors of Mitch Curry there in towards turn 4. Very close around 5 as well. Oh, but slides on the exit, and that's not going to be helpful at all. They're queuing up behind, and there's a couple of others joining in here as well. So these groups continue to congregate at the moment. Curry, though, the one who's found himself very much on the defensive ever since Liam Tipping got behind him, really, and eventually passed him for 10th position.
As we see, Maguire's going very, very... That was a really interesting move. I'm not sure why he went all the way over to the left there to dip the tyres in. Was he trying to cool them down? I don't think that's been a thing in iRacing for a good couple of years, has it? Cooling the tyres down on the grass?
Not really sure if it's still possible.
I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure they actually stripped it out of the model. But maybe Troy Maguire knows something that we don't. That is one of the things to really keep in mind at a track like Catalunya, isn't it? As we see Maguire come in for what will be the first pit stop in the field, he's obviously wanting to get some clear air and try and make the best of an undercut, get himself out in front of Curry and back up towards Kane Ryder. I think that's probably one of the things that was pulled only a couple of seasons after it became a pretty massive deal, and all of the pro iRacers were basically running their tyres in the grass all the time to keep the temps down, and it was making a far greater difference than it had any right to. But if there was a track that you wanted to do it at, it would be Catalunya. There's so many of these sweeping bends. They really do just put so much extra temp into those tyres that you'd take any advantage you can get. Big moment there for Mitch Curry.
Yeah, it went wide there. That looked like an unforced error, actually. Mick Poley says thanks very much and moves up into 11th position very, very quickly indeed. So Mitch Curry there making an error through turn 5, and he's paid for it with 11th position. And Mick Poley now holds that place. Cattle and Miller have joined behind. James Hardy's now in the group as well as Trent Thomas as well. Danny Davison's in. So is this tactical, as he'd called up to Reece Wakefield, better than he had been in this entire race up until that point? But Danny Davison now comes in. The problem for him, I think, is going to be that he ends up in traffic here into the pit lane for Cool and Jensen as well as Chris Croach. So all kinds of cars coming in pit lane here. They're going to need to go a little bit further in some of the later stints, though, if they want to make this a two-stop race.
It does make me wonder if we're seeing people coming in at this 28.5, 29 minute mark. I wonder how tight it's actually going to be on fuel as a two-stopper. I think what should be a massive red flag to some of these drivers is that they haven't made it to the half-hour mark. Now, I don't know how low they are actually on fuel, but certainly if they're coming in now to top it back up, they've got to really think about doing some fuel saving, because they cannot afford to come up, 2 minutes short at the 1 hour mark. That's going to mean you have to make that third stop. This is going to get very, very interesting. I don't think this is accidental at all from the admin when they've set this up. They're going to make these guys really think about their fuel usage, and I suspect what we're going to see here is some lap times start to fall away a little bit, just a little, as these guys start to realise that maybe the name of the game here tonight is going to be a whole lot of rolling off the throttle and coasting it coming up to turns, just to save those extra few 100 mil here and there that will get them home with 2 stops.
Yeah, maybe it's going to be more complicated than we were expecting. Trent Thomas down the inside of Alex Cattle for 19th position, moves on up. Brian East just found himself in the middle of Chris Croat and Troy Maguire, by the way, just up in front, so that's a bit awkward. Reece Gardner on the screen for pretty much the first time tonight. Dan Barcher's just in front of him. These guys have all stopped back here, apart from Lucas Baker, who's just in front of them again. Chris Miller, the only one able to carry on again. We've only just got over half an hour now, so we really are at a limit here, and for those who pitted on lap 17 rather than 18, yeah, I think they are in a bit of trouble here, because they're going to need to go at least 18 laps on this next stint, maybe 19, and maybe that is why Davison has been catching up to Wakefield, because although he was setting personal best, it's entirely possible that Wakefield was saving fuel right from the very beginning. Or was it indeed tactical from Davison to try and get in front of Reece Wakefield? Well, if it was, then it hasn't worked, because he's still a couple of seconds behind, as Troy Maguire has issues on his outlap, spinning out of turn 12.
That shouldn't be a tyre issue. That's really interesting, because of course fuel limit does nothing really to your tyre longevity. It's possible that some of these guys have thought about doing a tyre change at some point, and so maybe Maguire's made that change when he's come in, but with a 20-second pit stop, that's nowhere near long enough to be a full set of tyres. So it shouldn't be that. He's just really overcooked it on that outlap, despite the fact that he should be on tyres that have a fair bit of temp in them.
Yeah, it's unusual to see that. On the inside for Trent Thomas on James Solani, through into 13th position. This is a corrected order now, by the way, so these are legitimate positions being fought over. Mick Polly has lost places, therefore, in the pit stop phase. He's on the outside of Sohani here. Oh, he's being pushed off the road nearly. Sohani really struggling on cold tyres, and he spins now. Cantle has to switch sides to get past him. He's in the wall. He can't find reverse. Oh, this is terrible for James Sohani. He reversed it onto the road. He's outside the top 20 before he can get going again.
This is the danger when you're coming out of the pits and you've got so many drivers who have come in around you. A little mistake, it's almost as bad as lap 1. You start to lose so many positions so quickly from a relatively small error. Oh, in the background, Liam Jensen gets all out of shape. He's managed to keep it straight, but only just. As we see, finally, Chris Miller comes in. Now, that's going to be very, very telling. Keep your eye on Chris Miller throughout the next hour of this race. He's managed to run an extra lap than anybody else on that first tank of fuel, still be in a fairly competitive position. That's going to give him, it's not going to give him a whole bunch of extra places because he's going to get away with one less stop, anything like that. But what it will do is it's going to set him up really, really nicely to not have to worry quite so much about conserving fuel in that final half hour, that final stint of this race.
That's Reece Gardner down the inside of Dan Bartush. We saw these two come out together, and Gardner now gets through into 16th position. That's just one up on where he qualified, so it's rather been battling around where he started this race. There's Gardner. And now Bartush in behind him. Patrick Frame just in next, and then Troy Maguire as well. So this could be a bit of a miserable 10 minutes or so for Dan Bartush, because Gardner's got past, and now he's got two drivers behind him who have dropped back because of incidents, so might well be quicker than him in terms of actual speed here. But meantime, out front, there's been a change for the lead. Danny Davison through on Reece Wakefield, and it's comfortable, it looks like, as well. But the worrying thing for Davison is all about fuel. This is the iRacing Designs replay. He has a look down the inside, makes it very clear he's coming from a long way back, and Wakefield sees him coming. Oh, and he gives him a slap in the face on the way past as well. But as I say, Davison has got to worry about fuel here. He's got to make sure he has got enough fuel to get to the end.
Yeah, that was a really aggressive move. Definitely wanted to get through and get out in front. Maybe feels that he's running just a little bit faster than Wakefield at the moment, which is, fair to say it's pretty accurate. Wakefield's time last lap was, well, almost a full second slower than Danny Davison. Now, whether it's from that overtake and maybe getting nudged aside a little, that's possible, but that's played into it as well, of course. But it really does talk to the difference in approach to fuel. I think at this point, Wakefield's actually probably a little bit more switched on to the fuel situation than Danny Davison might be.
Yes, I think that might be an accurate reading of the situation. Oh, that's Patrick Frame wide. That was a lot of understeer for the Corvette through turn 3. And Troy Maguire gets one of his easier overtakes of the season. That's up to 18th position now. And Dan Bartush's just been able to get away just a little bit in the meantime, but I don't think it's going to be for very long. I think both of these two could be finding their way past Bartush rather soon, and it's where a lot of these overtakes might well come through in the next 20 to 25 minutes as the middle part of this race continues, because there's drivers who've had issues who'll be recovering these positions, and that may well be where it all comes from through these next few moments. This is Troy Maguire's spin. It's getting on the power out of turn number 12, and I do think the cold tyres played a role there.
Really interesting. I would be very surprised if he had taken a set of tyres at that first one. You know, you've got generally, again, you can double stint these GT3 tyres at full fuel. It's not ideal, but you can absolutely get 2 hours out of these tyres. So if he has taken tyres at that half-hour mark, something's gone very, very wrong there. I don't know why you do that. Maybe though, maybe it has just been a simple forget to turn it off, something like that. Cooper Field finds himself in the kitty litter. He's a lap down, and for a first showing here tonight, that's going to be frustrating for him.
Just rolling onto the circuit, and not sure why he's not going now in that gap there, but anyway, you've got time to take tyres in these pit stops. 21 seconds. There is time to do tyres, because it's taken at the same time as fuel these days, but it is a cold tyre. It is a difficulty on cold tyres. I think we did see it though from quite a few drivers. Chris Croak now losing position to Liam Tipping through turn 7 and 8. I mean, if you remember James O'Hardy's spin, that looked exactly like a cold tyre spin to me. So I do wonder how many have actually taken tyres. It's impossible for us to know really, but there is time to do it, and these tyres will be taking a bit of a beating around here. So you do never know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm underestimating the impact that this first half hour of wear has had for some of these tyres. It's one of those things that I'm never quite sure what to expect these drivers to make the decision on, because for me, if I don't need to take tyres, I'm going to keep the temperature in them all day. Maybe that's where I'm losing all my time when I get behind the wheel of the GT3s. But I suspect it's probably my inability to find the apex more than anything else.
It's always good to find an excuse, though.
Oh yeah, I'll take it. It's the tyres. Blame the equipment,
exactly.
Right? That's the sign of a great tradesman or something like that.
A great tradesman never blames his tools.
Oh, maybe it's the wrong way around. Well, we'll keep blaming the tyres all the same. These guys have been battling at it for a little while. Miller and Cattle have been locked in there. Chris Miller, of course, had the extra lap over anybody else with his pit stop. So to have come back out, he's still a couple of spots up from where he started this race in 16th. That's going to increase, I suspect, pretty soon as we get towards the hour mark and drivers start to come in for their second stops. Cooper Field's had a big incident. By the look of things, we'll go back and take a look at the iRacing design replay. What's happened for this drive to entry? The entry to the pits. Oh! That's a big impact on that pit wall, and I will say that is almost identical to the contact we saw last week with the ASR supercars. The only advantage, of course, for Cooper Field is that he's not managed to block the entire pit lane with that incident, which is more than could be said for last week's incident that caused a massive issue on the way into the pits. So in the scheme of things, if you're going to hit that pit wall, that's probably the best outcome you can hope for.
Yeah, I think that's the end of his day by the looks of things, and that's our first retirement, at least from those who have started the race. That is our first retirement of the day. Coolan and Jensen, meantime, for 6th position continues to be a battle. It's the highest placed battle now in the field, because out front Danny Davison now leads by 1.6 seconds. But as we've mentioned time and again, he needs to go much further on this tank of fuel than what he did in the first stint of this race. And at the moment, he just isn't going to with the current lead that he's got. He clearly can't be fuel saving, and if he can only go 17 laps doing what he did last stint, then surely it's only going to be 17 laps this time round as well. But that will be handing Reese Wakefield the win, because he's never going to be able to make an extra pit stop and still win.
No, absolutely not. Keep a very close eye on these lap times as they come through, though. Last lap, Danny Davison was bang on with Reece Wakefield's lap time, which says to me that maybe the message has come through from the Team Max Boost radio that Davison needs to back it off. He doesn't need to pull out further. He does need to save a fair bit of fuel. You see it there again. Danny Davison actually running 3 or 4 tenths slower than Reece Wakefield on that lap. So he's absolutely got the message. I think, though, that might be a little too late for him. He's already 10 minutes into this stint. We expect about a half hour out of the stint. He's going to have to do a lot of work saving fuel to try and get it back in line with what he'll need to come home. And I suspect we're going to see that gap to Reece Wakefield start to fall pretty rapidly over the next 15 minutes.
Yeah, let's see. Came Ryder meantime has got a slow down penalty, as he is trying to get on terms with Liam Jensen just further up front. It's going to drop about a second behind as a result of that slowdown. Mitch Curry now on board with him through the right-hander rather, of turn 3, and Thomas now right behind. So Thomas indeed diving from a long way back there. Mitch Curry giving a lot of room as well, as he tends to through turn 4. Not sure whether he's missing his apex there as he's leading a car width on the inside line, but he's going a lot wider than he needs to through those right-handers very often, but he holds on this time round. It's noticeable though, isn't it, how this is no longer a group round here in a part of the field that used to be so congested. It's now just 2 car battles really.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing throughout most of the field, if not drivers really running solo with a good second or 2 between them, as everyone starts to just settle into their rhythm and try and just drive to the numbers that they know they need to get home. Everyone's going to be on a pretty similar strategy, but there will be very slight differences in how they do choose to approach this when they decide to push. And if they're seeing an opportunity to start to close some gaps while still saving fuel, they'll jump at them. But at this point, when we look at the pit stops from most of the field came in on lap 17 or managed to squeeze it to 18. But with most of the field coming in at 17 and coming in a good minute or so before the half-hour mark, they're going to have to really be watching the fuel usage per lap here if they do want to get home. That's going to be the feature here tonight, is who can actually maintain their position and start to stretch this out. And then we add on the extra challenge in that final stint of starting to look like we're going to be racing in some very dark conditions. Catalunya doesn't have track lighting, so it will be very much down to the headlights on each car and just how well accustomed the drivers can become to seeing what's ahead of them and knowing where they need to be on track without some of the visual markers that they'd often use to judge their braking.
It will be very dark, and the sunset expected to be about an hour into this race, but should still be able to see a decent amount after that, which well, we'll see whether it becomes a real problem or not. Davison now caught by Wakefield, and the gap less than a second again. So has Davison finally woken up to the fact that he is going to have to save a little bit more fuel to make it home from here, or what is going on? Because there's clearly a closing of the race leading gap. That's Troy Maguire, who was sliding from turn in there and spinning by the exit, bringing a lot more gravel onto the circuit as well through turn 8.
He's really struggling with the rear end of that Mustang. It's given up on him a couple of times now, and I do wonder if maybe, look, it may not be a tyre issue. It might just be that he's got the brake balance right on the edge, and he's really pushing the very limits of what that chassis is able to handle around Catalunya. I can't understand any other reason why he would have spun a couple of times here tonight. There's not been a spate of cars losing it through corners here this evening. There's been a couple of panel rubbing incidents here and there that have caused some spins, but broadly speaking, the track surface is actually pretty nice for this race. Good track temps, so the tyres shouldn't be getting too slick from overheating. I think Troy Maguire maybe just pushing a little bit too hard under brakes.
So Kane Ryder going to continue to try and get past Liam Jensen here. One of the closer battles inside the top 10. Liam Tipping and Chris Croak behind them. a long way further back. Brian East just in front of Lucas Baker and James Bunker here, and a much better exit from Baker onto the front straight is already alongside by the time they get over the start finish line there. So Baker should be on his way past, and indeed into 24th position in front of Brian East. So nicely done. You just saw that actually on the timing tower, the lap times come through for Davison and Wakefield. That means they've just come over the line again, and that means that these three are not too far away from going a lap down. And we haven't seen lap traffic become too much of a role too often this season. I mean, Sandown was a very short circuit, so you could see that it would be a little bit more of a factor, but even at this circuit, which is pretty long really, they're going to be lapping some of those especially who are a bit further down the field.
Yeah, we've really only got two drivers that have ended up a lap down so far, which for 45 minutes into a race is a pretty good start. You can't be too upset with that. Christian Shevchenko and Cooper Field, of course, Field is out, so he won't be rejoining this race this evening. I can't imagine. I'd say that damage to the Lamborghini from that incident earlier, way too difficult to repair. Shevchenko is just not finding his pace here tonight, so is a fair way back. We haven't seen anything too challenging happen to him along the way. Reece Gardner's just had an incident as he tries to push on here, and is this just overcooking it on the exit? It is. Decided he wanted to take the inner run this time around, perhaps.
Well, yes, he did end up on the other layout just briefly there. Just getting on the power sort of too exuberantly out of turn 10, and it is a difficult traction zone. You can constantly turning while getting on the power there, and so you can understand it a little bit, but nevertheless, that's an interesting spin, a disappointing spin, and he will drop a long way down through the double right-hander now at the end of the lap now for Jensen. Oh, and wow!
Late
Three
decision.
stop then for Jensen, and that is a late decision. Kane Ryder gets through, and interesting that Jensen has made that choice, because surely it's got to be slower than the two stop, but maybe they've decided that we're never going to make it on two stops anyway.
Well, this could be perhaps a pretty bold strategic move from Jensen. If he's done the numbers as we've been doing here in the booth, he's probably thinking there's going to be quite a number of drivers that are going to have to make it a three-stop. Maybe it's actually in his best interest to split the difference here, rather than, for a lot of drivers, if they haven't really thought it out too much, what we're probably going to see is a real rash of pit stops in about 10 minutes' time. And that will mean that there's also going to be a huge glut of pit stops just a couple of minutes before the end of this race. Now, does Jensen look at that and go, well, maybe there's an opportunity here to split my pit stops up a little bit, make sure that the amount of time through the pit lane is actually worthwhile, and come out ahead? I'm not sure it's going to play out quite that way. As we see him come back out, he's still spent 20.5 in the bay, so he's not reduced the amount of time in taking on fuel there. Maybe he has just been burning that much. James Bunker comes in for a second stop. Have we actually seen these drivers burning a lot more fuel now that the field has opened up a bit and there's not so much slipstream to play with? Are they actually finding that it's very, very difficult to get the fuel usage down without the aid of the aerodynamics of the car in front? Maybe that's playing a bigger part now that the field has spaced out.
Yeah, or whether the cooler temperatures and more grip are providing them with a bit higher fuel consumption later on, but it's looking more and more like we could see more three stops than expected here, which is very, very interesting to see. I mean, to be fair, the GT3s these days in iRacing do struggle to go to an hour in the longer endurance races where there is no fuel restriction. So you do the maths. Same applies when we've got a 50% fuel restriction on half an hour here in this series, but 10 minutes to go until half distance. Davison and Wakefield not that far away from the end of another lap here, so I'll hope that they've got quite a lot more fuel on board, but they need to go another 6 laps at least here. But for Davison, that will be a 19-lap stint, which we've not seen from anybody yet so far today. So as long as Reece Wakefield, I think, can save the fuel required, I think he's absolute favourite at the moment. But there'll be a nagging doubt that maybe Davison can somehow make it to the end.
Yeah, and I think that will be the massive sigh of relief for Wakefield is as soon as he sees Davison pit, as long as it's before the 1 hour mark and the Wakefield can make it past the hour, he's got this race in the bag. But the next 10 minutes are going to be absolutely nail-biting for him.
Yes, they definitely are.
As a complete aside from race strategy, I love this time of day. The cars look so
Really
good in this light. It's yeah, from a broadcast perspective, I love getting a bit of that golden hour happening on so many of the liveries that these guys spend so much time putting together, and it's great to see them really lit up in something that's not the usual, midday sun that we see so often in officials.
I'm not sure what it is about looking at this time of day in iRacing, but I don't like the colour of it, if you see what I mean. The general sort of almost filter it puts on the screen. But
Yeah,
in real life,
certainly very yellow.
It is very yellow and not a nice yellow. But in real life, I do like this sort of time of day. The sun's coming down or whatever. It's been a sunny day. It's not quite as warm anymore. You can still see the sun or whatever. It's not too strongly in your eyes all the time because it's just dipping below the horizon. Yeah, it's a nice time of day in real life, but I think it looks horrible on a computer screen. But anyway, 20 to 6, by the way. Sunset today is supposed to be at 6 p.m. in Barcelona, so not entirely sure whether it is literally today's date or whatever, but it doesn't really matter because you can still see quite well even after sunset, just for a little bit longer, especially as the sun dips below the horizon as brightly as it is here in today's race. So yeah, it's going to be light for some time, but as we've mentioned, there's no floodlights around here, so they will need the headlights at some stage, and I think it'll be the first nighttime driving of the season, although it really won't be too consequential, I don't think.
No, I can't imagine it will. There's definitely going to be a few drivers that probably don't quite get on the brakes early enough as they start to lose visibility of some of the braking markers that perhaps they put a lot of test time into. But I mean, it really does depend on, I suppose, which brake markers they've chosen. For the drivers that do use immediately trackside objects, it's going to be a lot easier for them. The headlights will still pick those up relatively easily. You've still got shadows to deal with and all that kind of thing that can make it a little bit more difficult at night. But if you've done the work in practice and set yourself up with some really distinct braking markers, it shouldn't cause too many issues for any of these drivers here tonight. That's a pretty big shouldn't, as opposed to a won't.
Yeah, indeed. At the meantime, side by side between Miller and Cattle. That's Cattle trying to get past. Oh, Miller, that's a good switchback. Very nicely done, and there's contact. Well, I thought that was very nicely done, actually, towards turn 5 from Cattle, but there was contact with Miller. They'll argue amongst themselves about who turned into who made the late move on who, but I thought that was quite a nice move from Cattle. It's a shame that it ended with a bit of contact there. Meantime, lap 32 complete here at the front for Danny Davison, who's led the middle portion of this race, but Reece Wakefield is with him now, and look at the lifting off he's doing here. Wakefield is determined to make this on just one more stop. He would need to go another 4 laps though, as does Davison, who I find it extremely unlikely is going to at the moment.
Yeah, I can't imagine so. You can see that Davison's gone into a much heavier fuel-saving approach. He's dropped right off the pace that he was holding. Reece Wakefield's caught up to him. But all that Davison's doing right now is helping Wakefield get further and further along. I think, Davison probably would be better served here. It's marginal, right? But he'd probably be better served to actually let Wakefield come through and get into that slipstream behind and try and save some fuel that way. Right now, Wakefield is just absolutely enjoying the pocket of air that's being opened up behind that Corvette, and it's giving Wakefield just that little bit less air resistance to push through, an ability to just coast a little bit further than he otherwise would be able to. But he's absolutely backing off this very, very early. You can see he's quite happy to just cruise along at a reasonable pace. we've seen this from Wakefield before. He's no stranger to endurance racing and has a real knack for extracting quite a bit of fuel saving out of some still relatively quick laps.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's all death. And maybe it was just how we joined it, but I thought Cam Ryder was going to hit cool there towards turn 9.
It looked like a pretty high rate of closure, didn't it?
It did, but I think it was just as we flicked to it. There he goes down the inside of turn 10, where he has made contact in the past, but this time he is intending to go down the inside. On another occasion, he wasn't intending to do anything. Round the outside, that's close, very close. Oh, that was so nearly contact. That was very nearly contact for Cam Ryder, but he gets away with it, and Cool has to stay in behind. So Cam Ryder moves up into 6th position here in front of Cool, and that's a nice pass. He's got to extend, don't forget, 5 seconds on anybody he tries to, although having said that, I've just checked again, and in fact it's now gone to a post-race investigation, so I suspect that one has been appealed and is going to be looked at again afterwards.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's very, very rare that you'd see an appeal lodged as Troy Maguire comes in. But there's stop number 2, and that's a real indicator. That's almost 3 minutes shy of the 1 hour mark. Is this going to be the start of the flood of drivers jumping into the pit lane? If it is, then that tells us that we're going to see either some very, very slow final laps as everyone tries to get those extra couple of laps out of the tank, or we're going to see a huge flurry of splash and dashes throughout the final stint.
Yeah, let's see. I suspect at the moment it's going to be quite a few 3-stop races, to be honest. And Davidson's in. Yeah, he can only do 17 laps a time, and at the moment Reece Wakefield's only target is to get to lap 36. That's the only target now. He can slow down a lot to try and make it to, because Jeremy Washington's a long way behind, and it'll not even be sure if Washington's going to carry on to get there to that 36 lap point as well. Davison has led a lot of laps in this race. He's going to lead a lot more as well, but he's also going to need a splash and dash on fuel late on in this race, and unfortunately that is going to give him a mountain too big to climb in this race.
For those drivers who have only made the 1 stop so far, have a look at the top of that leaderboard, basically filled with anyone who made it through to lap 18. All of the lap 17 drivers starting to pit in now. So I think that will be a pretty significant factor for a lot of these drivers in terms of how we finish this race. We'll keep an eye on it, but I suspect that for the likes of Washington and McCrowan, they've probably made the right judgment on just keeping the pace down a little further. Jeremy Washington, I think, has probably been all over this from the start as well. So he'll be probably following Reece Wakefield in next time around. Even so, if Wakefield does come in on this lap, it's still going to be just a little bit short of where he's probably going to be super comfortable with the time that he's got to run in that final stint. As we see the headlights come on.
Yeah, the headlights starting to make a bit more of an impression here. Reece Wakefield can go again.
Extra lap. Oh, here we go. This is what he needed.
So 18 laps in the first stint, 18 laps in the second, at least. And that, if you look at the time, 59 minutes gone in this race. That's going to send him just over an hour. It's not going to be comfortable even now, but he's got to make 18 laps per stint, and that's what Wakefield has been able to do. But we were riding on board with him only briefly. He's been fuel saving a lot to make this, and Davison just hasn't been. He's been running out all high speed, and so that's been the difference between these two in this race. I feel one fuel saving and one not, and it's the fuel saving strategy that's been able to work, because even though Wakefield is losing in a straight fight at the moment, he is going to be visiting the pit lane less, so it's going to be in his favour by the looks of things. Reece Gardner, meantime, sliding his way out of the pit lane here and back out of the racetrack. This is an outlap. It looks like he's on cold tyres to me, or cold-ish tyres anyway. James Doyle gets through, and Stevens consolidates an advantage for 20th as well, so Reece Gardner just getting up to speed again here.
I do want to take a closer look here. Scott Stevens, the Team Jig Shifters entry, of course, also the host of the IRS ANZ chat show. does a very, very mean livery, and this is a brand new one on this McLaren tonight. We haven't seen this before. Of course, Stephen hasn't actually managed to get behind the wheel so far this season. I don't know if he's been too busy in the paint shop getting this done up, but as always, a very, very nice turnout of paintwork from Mr. Stevens, as he just gets that inside the pit wall.
That was very close. Thought he was going to understeer on into the wall. Reece Wakefield into the pit lane meantime. And there's going to be a lot of people following. The top 6 all yet to stop. In fact, 10 of the top 11 rather, all to stop. But that showed you how many have actually made it. Davison down to 7th as things stand with this few stop. I think though he might be able to make himself back up to 5th place after he makes that splash, because obviously his last stop will be a lot shorter, and he's only 10 seconds behind Kane Ryder right now anyway. So Davison's going to get a top 5 return from this race, which will be his 3rd top 5 of the season in so far the 8th race of the season. Maybe a little bit low for what you'd expect from Davison, but it's just a strategy that hasn't worked out. Wakefield comes out of the pit lane again. He's quicker than Davison, and indeed out there sooner, and yeah, this is Wakefield's race to lose now.
It absolutely is. I'm just doing the numbers in my head, and forgive me, my mental math is not always what you call on point, but if I'm reading this correctly and assuming that our telemetry is pretty accurate as well, when you take out the time in the bay, you're talking about probably 20 to 25 seconds of actual driving transit time down this pit lane. Now, add in, I don't know, let's call it a 5-second stop for Danny Davison. He's still going to lose 30 seconds on his current standing. Now, if that happens, that's going to drop him back to very, very close to outside of the top 10 with the way that the standings are currently. So he's going to have to really get a move on, and you'd have to think that from this point he needs to just be absolutely full throttle. He knows that he's not going to get home on 2 stops, so he needs to really make it up on the track.
Yeah, certainly does. As mid-time, this is Tahani just in behind Cool and Kane Ryder, who are all fighting for 7th position. See the internal lights now turning on for the McLaren here, lighting everything up blue. And look at the gap up in front of these 3 as well. 7th place is the best that any of these guys can hope for here, unless there is an erroneous pit stop from somebody. Chris Miller's been able to do 19 laps so far, by the way. Not sure what the benefit of that is, but he's up in 4th place at the moment. So maybe this will turn to 6th for these 3, but it's all they can hope for. And indeed Miller comes in this time round, so doesn't do 19 laps again. Don't know why he bothered doing it in the first place, but he's definitely fine on fuel. Pretty sure everybody else is, who made it on to 36 though anyway.
Yeah, look, they will be. I think the difference though, you saw the amount of fuel saving that the Wakefield and co had to do. You see Salhani now on his way in for a pit stop. The difference for Miller is that getting that extra lap or 2 out of the first and second tank means that he really doesn't have to conserve almost any fuel at all for this final stint. So he's about to have 25 minutes of absolute flat-out driving. Now it'll be very interesting to see where he comes out into 12th, in fact 13th, as Alex Cattle just sneaks on by. But if he can get out ahead of Mitch Curry here, and seems to have got it done, although Curry's got a lot of pace coming into 1, I think he should hold on to this, Will Miller. I reckon watch for some very, very fast times from Chris Miller here. Outright, he doesn't have quite the same pace as someone like Reece Wakefield at full noise, but when Wakefield's still looking at saving fuel and really, making sure that he does get home from here, I actually think that Chris Miller has a huge opportunity to pick up a few spots. I think it's asking a lot from 14 to get too much further up the tower, but this is really his opportunity to try and get some extra pace here. He doesn't have it right now. Mitch Curry getting through and starting to pull away, so maybe that is a set of fresh tyres for Miller, and he's about to really start to push on as they come up to 10, but it'll take a good couple of laps if he has done that before he can really start to push, and that's the bit that I can't quite wrap my head around. If anyone is taking tyres in this race, I have no idea why he would be. I just don't see the payoff of doing that. with the new tyre model, these GT3s really do take a solid 3 laps to get temp into them, and over the course of this sort of race distance, you just can't afford to lose that much time. Watch now the battle for 8th, Trent Thomas and Liam Jensen. Either side of Liam tipping as Thomas goes through, so the 2 Koala Cartel cars dropping off this one. Thomas, the iRacing Chat Show livery, doing him well at the moment, managing to stay ahead of the 2 Koala Cartel entries. He's got another 8 seconds up the track yet in Thomas Cool. It's going to be perhaps a little while before he has an opportunity to say hello to him. But Jensen and Tipping, meanwhile, side by side, it's certainly not been a feature from any of the rounds so far, Ewan. I don't think we've actually seen too much in the way of team orders from the Koala Cartel cars. They do seem to mix it up with each other a fair bit.
Yeah, they do. I was trying to myself on mute there, sorry. Yes. Jensen, they came through on tipping what seemed to be an amicable move, really, but there you go. I mean, the bigger concern for the two of them will be Trent Thomas going through the field and running away from them. Thomas started in 21st position. Makes you wonder, really, at what happened in qualifying to him, because he seems to be racing fine, but at the moment is in 8th place. And maybe could have been more if he had qualified a little bit better. But Thomas here has got to try and hold on from Jensen, who just in behind him here is going to be putting on a lot of pressure. In fact, they're leaving behind him tipping, so it seems they made the right decision here. The Mustang getting the later apex there, a better run on to the front straight, and now into the slipstream. Is there going to be a chance towards turn number 1 here for Jensen, you wonder? As Trent Thomas doesn't decide to defend the inside line, he doesn't need to. Jensen still stays behind.
Yeah, I think Jensen's probably going to be well served to just sit in behind here. He's on the right strategy still, of course, in terms of the fuel levels, but any bit of fuel saving you can get, although a mistake there from Thomas sees him go very, very wide on that exit. And I think this might be the opportunity Jensen's looking for. He gets up the inside, makes it look easy. Thomas has no answer to that, but he'll just want to tuck in behind and try and save a little bit of fuel in that slipstream as well. I do wonder how much that's going on with just over 20 minutes to go. Are any of these drivers having to really think about their fuel situation? Have they cut too much fuel out of their pit stop? Are they going to have just enough to get home? I don't think there's any question for Reece Wakefield. The biggest question is who can make something more of this final stint. Danny Davison up in second. He's a long way back. He's now almost 6 seconds back on Reece Wakefield, and that's just been from a little bit of attrition each and every lap. Just a few tenths here and a few tenths there. But we know that we're expecting him to probably lose around about 30 seconds with a splash and dash. Now at the moment, that's going to see him fall back to about 6th, which really in the scheme of things is not a terrible result considering you're running an extra pit stop than most of the rest of the field.
I don't think it'll drop quite even that far down. I think it'll be 5th probably. There's a big gap there between 5th and 6th, so I think he'll probably end up in that gap between Searle and Kane Ryder. But yeah, it's not going to be the top 2 like we have seen him in for almost all of this race. I know, by the way, a fuel saving comment coming in and YouTube chat about Jeremy Washington and the Mercedes, which apparently, according to one team, was saving 2 more laps than nearly every other car at the Daytona 24 the other week. 10 days ago. So clearly a little bit of fuel efficiency in that car in this latest iRacing BOP.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's of course Ryan Palmer from ADHD checking into the chat. Good to have you hanging out with us, mate, while you sit around. Not on race control tonight, but indeed just enjoying a night off. And probably fair enough after last night's efforts. I imagine would have been a little challenging, as Gen 3 supercars do tend to be. But of course these GT3s are not exactly the easiest to manage either at the best of times. And right now Liam Tipping and Mick Poley battling it out for the back end of the top 10. one of the closest battles on track. There's only a couple of drivers now, even within a second of each other. And I think what we're starting to see is some pretty significant fuel management from the latter half of this field. Troy Maguire has caught Reece Gardner, so he'll be looking to make a move past here, I'm sure. But really, the top drivers that are going to need to come in again, Danny Davison will have to come in. I'm expecting that Thomas Kuhl in 7th is going to have to make a splash and dash as well. Liam Jensen, we know, came in on lap 28, so there's no way he's getting home on this tank of fuel. And we'd expect Trent Thomas to be coming in as well. So although he has had a good run in amongst the Quail Cartel cars there, I think he'll be dropping a fair way back as we see a big move from Chris Lashbrook. Look at that up the inside. Brake road is glowing in the evening light as he makes the move on Dan Bartouche and sneaks on in to 15th. Lashbrook should have the fuel to get home. Bartouche is absolutely saving hard. He came in on lap 34, so a lot of work still to do.
And everybody below Bartouche as well will have to stop again, apart from James Doyle, who's probably going to gain a lot of places late on here. I know he's 30 seconds behind everybody else, but he should gain some more positions. Only other driver we haven't mentioned who probably has to stop again is Alex Cattle as well. He probably has to make one more pit stop before the finish. Troy Maguire gets past Reece Gardner meantime for 17th position. Both of these having to stop again before the end, but Maguire's recovering positions anyway after trouble earlier on in the race, and that is going to be one-way traffic by the looks of things. Maguire is going to try and catch Bartouche, and I'd imagine he'll succeed in it, but Bartouche has been very sort of consistent throughout. I mentioned in the middle stint that he was going to find it a little bit miserable getting overtaken by everybody, but actually Maguire and Gardner and Frame and other guys who I was expecting to get past because they dropped back from earlier still haven't been able to. So Bartouche has been going at a very level sort of pace, if you like, throughout the day, and he's sort of let others rise and fall around him.
Yeah, which is it's a little surprising, isn't it, to see such consistent pace and yet still not quite on the money with the fuel calculations. It's unfortunate, but I think he probably, if he just adjusted that pace a little, he's obviously very capable of that consistency across an hour and a half of racing. If he just tweaked the timing a little bit, he probably would have had a much better result. I mean, he's up 7 from where he qualified, so can't argue with that, but geez, where could he have been as a result of maybe just a little bit more fuel saving? Liam Tipping coming under attack now from Mick Poley, who is just a couple of tenths behind. Both of these guys have a reasonable amount of fuel on board. They should be getting home relatively comfortably. The biggest question here, and what will certainly perhaps set the tone for a lot of these guys, is just when Wakefield sees that white flag come out. Now, I'm not super familiar, I'll be honest, with timed races on iRacing. We've seen them a few times here and there, but it seems a little bit of a mystery to me sometimes, Ewan, as to exactly when iRacing decides the final lap will actually be called. Is it, and I'm going to ask for your expertise with your years of commentary and years of watching the racing here on iRacing, I'm not actually convinced whether it is based on when the leader starts the last lap that will have them home after the time certain finish, or whether it's the first lap that they start beyond the hour and a half. Which is it going to be tonight?
When they cross the line for the first time after the time's elapsed, that's it. That'll be the end of the race. So it can get. We'll see how close it is from one lap compared to the other, because that can make it quite confusing as well. As we see Chris Croat here on the Narup Designs replay. Oh, getting past Reece Gardner, who's got no rear wing, or is that just because it's dark?
No, that's no rear wing. So Gardner's obviously had an issue at some point, which has removed that rear wing. That's going to be really, really difficult to get that one home now. Mick Poley, meanwhile, has picked up a black flag, so he's going to have to serve drive-through, and that's a real disappointment.
Wonder though if that's incident limit, and he's just letting Tipping and Cattle through, therefore, because there's not much point battling with them if indeed there is a black flag to his name. See if we can find out what's happened here to either Gardner or Poley. This is Troy Maguire though. And now, so is this related to Reece Gardner? Because he was with Gardner earlier.
I reckon there's.
And he's slow through turn 10.
Let's see what we can find. Give me a moment to have a bit of a look back through the last couple of laps, but I think you probably are on the money. There's been something happen with Reece Gardner and Troy Maguire, and I suspect it might have been, well, maybe a little earlier in the lap there. We'll go back and take a look at this. So Reece Gardner does have the rear wing on there. Oh, that's a really unfortunate tap in the wall to remove the rear wing there. It's just clipped it. But he's done that all by himself, so I don't actually know what Troy Maguire was doing there.
No, I don't really know either, but never mind. At the pit lane for the final time then for some of these guys. That was Mick Crowley serving his penalty though. Tipping and Cattle meantime side by side again. Alex Cattle moves up into 9th place now ahead of Liam Tipping. So overtakes happening later on here for Cattle into 9th, and will have to stop again, so that will cost him his top 10 place, but either way he is through. 5-second time penalty for Cattle, by the way, has been given for that incident with Miller we saw down towards turn 5 earlier. It's the reasoning from race control that Cattle didn't have sufficient overlap at the turning point to make to demand the space there and make contact with Chris Miller, and Mick Crowley has also got a 5-second time penalty for making contact with the rear of Mitch Curry and spinning him around. A 10-second penalty to Troy Maguire for an incident with Dan Barchers, so that might have been what he was slowing down for or something, but he's got the most hefty penalty so far, has Maguire, for a little bit of contact as Liam Jensen comes in for his final stop of the day. That'll be kicking all the stops final stops off now.
There's the contact, and Bartouche copped a very big hit there. He's lucky to slide sideways into that wall and avoid perhaps worse damage, although it certainly looks as though it's done a fair bit to that car, and it definitely cost him some places, although still up one spot on where he started the race, so it could be worse. But yeah, I think that would probably explain what we did see there from Troy Maguire. While we were taking a look at all that, Thomas Kuhl has had a moment as well, and it looks to be self-inflicted. The drive out of some of these corners, getting up and over that curb, has undone so many people tonight. Whoa!
Oh dear!
Whoa.
Got to be careful rejoining like that. Coming out of turn 7 and 8. It's a place where there's not really a defined racing line through this bit. Once you actually hit the apex there and you're sort of on your way, it takes drivers different amounts of time to get to the left to turn in for this corner. Curry and Tipping now side by side. Mitch Curry now. Oh, and he tries to get. Oh, wow. He flashes the lights there, Tipping, and I think rightfully so, because Curry there tried to come across on him when he wasn't quite clear yet, and buried it. Well, it would have turned out for Curry worse, but nevertheless, that was turning across there when he wasn't quite clear, and he very nearly had disastrous consequences for it.
Now let me test your memory a little bit, Ewan. Was it Liam Tipping that cut across the nose of Mitch Curry earlier in this race? I think it was one of the Liams. I don't know if it was Tipping, but I think we saw something almost identical to that earlier on, and I wonder if Mitch Curry just taking the opportunity to give a little bit of a nudge back in the same kind of manner. In any case,
to be honest, I don't really remember the incident even that you're referring to, never mind who was involved in it. So no, I can't help there at all.
I could have imagined it entirely, of course. That's a real possibility. This is the thing with endurance races. Even an hour and a half, so much happens across the course of that race that it's almost like it was another round. Some of the early incidents, and so much changes along the way. We're into the final 10 minutes of this hour and a half of racing, and you'd have to think that Reece Wakefield is going to be very, very comfortable. If Davison does manage to make it home, it's still a 4-second gap there, but I would expect that Davison's probably going to have to come in in probably about 5 minutes' time. He's going to be doing everything he can to stretch that tank out without losing touch and without giving up too much of that 13-second gap back to Jeremy Washington. But given the times that he's pushing at the moment, a 1:39.65 on the last lap, that is right up there with his best time, 1:39.61. So he is going flat out to minimise the damage from this extra pit stop that's coming his way.
Well, there goes Jensen down inside of Mick Poley, and pretty deep into the corner as well, but through into 13th. So these are now legitimate places for Liam Jensen, because he can go to the end of the race. So he needs to make these moves. Lashbrook and Miller, who are the next two in line, in fact the next four in line, including Tipping and Curry as well, all can go to the end. So those are legitimate catches and passes that he's got to make. I would say he's only probably got time for Lashbrook though, because we are into the final 10 minutes, unless these two start to fight a lot more harshly, I suppose. Tipping is losing time at the moment. Curry got past him and has run away. Miller is now up behind him and looking to take that top 10 position away as well. He's getting a good exit and a good run down towards turn number 5. Here he goes. He might have a dive here, and he does get through into the top 10. For whatever reason, Tipping is really going slowly towards the end of this race.
Well, it's that extra lap of racing that Chris Miller got done. Remember, he managed to pull an extra lap in both of his first two stints, and so he doesn't have to take anywhere near as much care with his fuel as Liam Tipping does right now. And you've been seeing that pretty much lap on lap. Miller's been a good couple of tenths faster. It's not much, but when you're in close quarters like this, that can be all the difference between these positions. Trent Thomas and Alex Cattle in 7th and 8th, they're going to drop back. They will surely have another visit to the pit lane in their very near future. They're just holding on and hoping that there might be something that interrupts here, maybe a safety car, something like that. But with an hour and 22 down and not a single safety car yet, I can't see it happening in the final 8 minutes of this race. So I'd have to think that Thomas and Cattle are going to see themselves into the pit lane fairly soon. They will be battling though between themselves for the spot as well, because of course if they're both coming to the pit lane, that means they're both going to end up pretty well identically placed on the way out of the lane. James Salhani, just a couple of laps ago, the iRacing Designs replay will pick this up again. Is it a curb that's undone someone?
As he spun through that corner before, through turn 5. So the last one was cold tyres. Not sure that one was, but it's that corner again for James Sahani, who's only just inside the top 10 still at this stage in the race. Cal just in behind Trent Thomas here for 7th position. Mitch Curry with the best view of it here from 9th. The two ahead of him though will have to stop again before the end of the race, so Curry can let these two do whatever they want, but actually at the moment they're actually slowing Curry down here and preventing him from getting anywhere near anybody else. I mean, I think these two positions, and indeed that 7th position, is probably the limit for Curry, because 20 seconds more than up to Kane Ryder, who doesn't need to stop again, and there's over 20 seconds in front of Ryder now as well. So I think Curry has reached his limit here, and he doesn't have to do too much to get that 7th place right from here either.
And how's this for absolutely devastating? Alex Cattle has just picked up a black flag, and I believe that would be an incident-related black flag, so he's obviously just picked up an extra off track or something like that, but that's going to send him through for a drive-through, and then he's still going to have to make a pit stop. That's his night absolutely done. A devastating result for Alex Cattle.
Yeah, he's going to drop a long way down, because unlike in front of him where there are big gaps, behind him the gaps are a lot smaller, and so they're going to send him a long way back there. Cattle will be on his way out again. I've got flag still next to his name, even on exit right now. I don't wonder if it's just a drive-through. But anyway.
Has he been done speeding on the way in? Surely not.
I doubt it somehow, but it's entirely possible, I suppose. In the meantime, Curry gets quite close to making that pass. See if it was. I don't think he would have been speeding on the way in towards pit lane here, but no, he's going very slowly on the way in. So I'm absolutely sure he doesn't.
Yeah, no, you'd hate to do that, wouldn't you? But it's still showing. So
it is still.
that's
I don't think he
interesting.
served it properly.
No, No, something's gone wrong there. And you know what? He's actually he's come in and he has actually. No, he's into the pits and left pits relatively quickly. I wonder if he's actually pulled up to his box and then realised maybe didn't realise he had the black flag, and in his panic he's not actually stopped and taken on the fuel, because it doesn't look like he spent any time at all in the box itself. We might have another look at that. We see Mitch Curry start to pull away. He's going to have to keep an eye on the rear view here, because Chris Miller is on the charge and only about a second behind. We know Trent Thomas is going to have to come in, so Curry's going to be hoping that this holds Miller up just a little and keeps him in the fight here. But here goes Chris Miller up the inside towards turn 1. He's going to look to be late on the brakes here. Makes it look easy in the end. Let's take another look at Alex Campbell. I'm really curious to see what's happened here. Has he actually come across? He has. So he's come across to the pit bay. He's stopped. He's gone up on the jacks. So he has done his pit stop first. That's really interesting. It hasn't actually recorded as having been a pit stop there on our telemetry. So he will be coming back in, you would think, to serve that drive-through this time around, or at least very, very soon. But it's going to see him tumble to the bottom of this tower.
Well, also, I mean, it's very wasteful to use set tyres at this stage in the race. There's no point really. That would have been a mistake as well, I would have thought. Tony Davidson not on the jacks there, and taking a splash of fuel. He should end up in 5th place here. So gets past only just those, a lap car letting it past James Sohani. So it's pretty busy in front of Davidson. He's got 2 laps, maybe 3, to try and get up the field a little bit further here. Yeah, it will be 3 laps. And try and get back past Searle and maybe McCrone. If you can rescue a podium from here, it'll be a very good result. But if not, then still a top 5 at the end of the day.
And it looks as though Troy Maguire's picked up a black flag as well. There's been quite a few of those tonight. The longer race distance, perhaps just catching a few drivers out with just how quickly those little off tracks and those little moments can all add up over the course of a race. We're down to the final couple of minutes, and a drive-through at this point is just horrifying as a driver. You've got no time to try and recover anything from it. We were talking earlier about there being only 2 lapped drivers in the field, I think, Ewan, and we're up to, what's my count here, 12? 11 drivers now who have been lapped, as we see. Oh, a big moment there for Davidson as he. This is interesting. This is not a battle for position.
Oh, and that's why Davidson's been so impatient with getting Sahadi out of the way there, because yeah, that isn't for position. It might have cost Davidson enough time though to prevent him from gaining any more places here. Curry and Miller on the same strategy, and they're going to fight it out to the end by the looks of things. By the way, still on the lead lap. It's only 14 on the lead lap now. So lots of cars 1 lap down at this stage. Miller gets a good run on the way down towards turn 10 here, and Curry's going to let him have that, which is a bit unusual with so little time remaining. 2 laps at the line, but Curry decides it's best to let Miller through.
Yeah, look, I think with the pace that Miller's had, again, remembering that he's got extra fuel on board, he's been absolutely carving it up as he made his way up through the field. He's not going to get much further. I think 7th will be the limit for him, but I think Curry probably very well aware that that will be where he finishes tonight. And he's got about a 4-second gap back to Trent Thomas to manage yet, who incidentally comes in to make that stop that has been just waiting to happen. He almost made it there, I suspect, and this is one of the difficulties, of course, is that with the timed races, we're not getting good feed through of data from iRacing these days as to whether or not we are actually on the final lap. We'll see if we can see the white flag, but this is
white flag this time round.
This is going to be either the white flag or the checkered. It should be the white flag this time around, so this should be the final lap for Reese Wakefield as we have reached the 1 hour 30 mark.
Yeah, he's the only driver in this field who could have forced us to do a 54th lap, by the way. Or indeed, if Wakefield had just gone about 5 seconds slower in terms of race time distance, then it also would have ended at 53 laps. But that's the beauty of timed racing. you never quite know how many laps you're going to end up doing, and for those who are nervous about or indeed requiring it to go only 53 and not 54, although those people are pretty rare, and they would have been a bit stuck there only because of Reece Wakefield and his speed. But looks like he's going to take the victory here. It'll be his second of the season in his first 8 races. With Dylan Shepherd's absence, he would take the championship lead as well pretty comfortably. It's a big haul of 300 points for this race, of course, the endurance race, but perhaps more importantly, the gaps per position at pretty much 9 points per position all the way down. And so even on those who finish in second and third, you begin to gain quite a few points. We'll see what the championship standings are by the end of the day when we begin the broadcast next week. But we know that Reece Wakefield is going to be on top of the standings. And if there were extra points for winning by a margin, then Reece Wakefield would be sweeping those up too. 17 seconds his gap at the line after 54 laps of racing here at Barcelona in the first endurance round in the Easy Motorcycle Spares GT3 Championship. It's Reece Wakefield who wins at Barcelona under the night sky. He flashes the lights, and it's his second race win of the season to take a very large championship lead coming towards the halfway stage next week.
Jeremy Washington coming home in second, maybe 17 seconds behind, but a great drive from the ADHD driver. Some fantastic fuel consumption work there. Danny McCrowan not far behind for Team Max Boost as well, picking up the 3rd spot on the podium, and Thomas Searle right behind him in 4th. And then the gaps start to really open up. Danny Davison's done a great job. He'll be coming home in 5th, but Reece Wakefield just managed it from start to finish, and I think that really shows as the biggest difference here tonight as we see him light up the tyres and celebrate with what should be a reasonable amount of fuel still on board for him.
He knows where the traction control button is as well, because he couldn't have done that otherwise. Apparently Liam Tipping's out of fuel, by the way, which is why he was dropping down late on there. He's down to 13th. Hearing that a couple of others were tight on fuel as well here. Still a battle between Mitch Curry and Chris Miller at the end of this race. They come over the line now, nose to tail, 7th and 8th. But where is Tipping, and is he out of fuel or not? We're hearing he's out of fuel, which I take to mean he's stopped, but
he's definitely
that's not really what they mean.
Definitely rolling it. It's I'm not going to say out of fuel, but I'm going to say power. Very, very, very low on fuel. He's still going. The car's not exactly coughing, and at this point, you know, that's not a bad way to finish. I mean, he's locked up 13th place here. He doesn't need to rush home. The rest of the drivers around him have all been lapped, and so they finish a lap earlier. So he will roll on home here. Jeremy Washington, though, I think might be out of fuel.
Well, he's finished, so that's a relief. I'm not sure how Tipping really managed to run out fuel there, because he pitted on lap 36 like everybody else, but must have just thought this race was going to be one lap shorter, so went hell for leather at the end, but has paid for that. Anyway, that is it for this endurance round. Let's have a look at the race results at the end of that one, with Reece Wakefield taking the victory by 17 seconds in front of Jeremy Washington. Danny McCrowan will join him on the podium. Thomas Searle and Dave Davison rounding out the top 5, with Kane Ryder, the last driver, within a minute of the victory. It was Chris Miller holding off Mitch Curry, as we saw there. Chris Lashbrook, ninth ahead of Liam Jensen, rounds out the top 10. Patrick Frame, Mick Polly and Liam Tipping were the last ones to finish on the lead lap. One lap down for Trent Thomas, Chris Croat, who round out the top 15. Thomas Cool next with James Doyle for the Koalas. Then James Sohani, Alex Cato and Dan Bartush, who rounds out the top 20. 21st for Scott Stevens, with Lucas Baker, Brian East also one lap down, with Troy Maguire. Christian Tachenko with 3 laps down. The non-finishers, were Reece Gardner, James Bunker, Cooper Field, with Ben Keat never taking the start here tonight. So let's have a chat, shall we, to Reece Wakefield, who has won here tonight from Barcelona. Reece, welcome in. Congratulations on winning the race in the end by 17 seconds. How sure were you that Danny was not going to be able to do the race on 2 stops there? Because initially we thought, in the commentary box, we've got a right race on here between these two and it's going to be a good watch, but in the end you'd been saving fuel and he clearly hadn't. At what point did you know that was the situation?
I was pretty certain after the second fuel stop. I had gone a lap extra than him both times, and I only just made the fuel margin. So I was pretty positive after the second stop that he was going to have another stop. And yeah, I just tried to stick with him. Like, I know he had to do another stop and the transit time through pit lane was a lot, but I didn't want to be complacent, so I just tried to stick with him as much as I could and just continue my fuel saving strat, and it paid out.
How have you viewed the first 4 rounds of this season? You've scored more points than the previous round in every round so far. Obviously, that's not going to continue now because you've got the 300 points from this race. But how have you sort of seen how the first 4 rounds have gone?
I think they've gone pretty good. Apart from my teammate Dylan Shepard just clean sweeping everything up until his real life commitments have come up now. So, but no, the first 3 rounds have been pretty good. I'm pretty happy with where I'm sitting right about now.
Well, congratulations on winning tonight, second win of the season, and thanks for chatting to us at the end as well.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much. That's Reece Wakefield wins this race tonight from Barcelona by 17 seconds in front of Jeremy Washington, who joins us now as well. Jeremy, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Let's rewind right back to the start to talk about your race, because your initial launch off the line had me concerned you'd be outside the top 5 at least by the end of the first sector, but you managed to cling on, I think, to 4th place in the end and progress from there. Just talk us through that launch off the line and how you managed to battle for and scrap for a top 5 position on the opening lap.
Yeah, hey guys, I definitely shared the same concern off the line. I was going to be counting the cars going past, I thought, but when I looked up in the mirror, a few others had a pretty poor start as well, so managed to limit the damage down to just 1 spot, and yeah, that set me up well for the race.
Yeah, your first top 5 of the season now in the form of a second place. You were alone up front though as a Mercedes driver. The next Mercedes was down in 14th position, despite there being some other very good drivers in the Mercedes this season. Some of them not here tonight, admittedly, but Corvettes all around you. Did it feel like a hindrance to you that you were in the Mercedes this week?
Not 100%. I would say obviously the Corvette's pretty competitive at the moment and everyone's sort of flocking to it, but I was pretty sure I was just going to stick with the Mercedes all season, and yeah, I think it gave me some advantages. I could seem to look after my tyres a little bit better in the first half of the stints, and through turn 3 and the final couple of corners, and then push on at the end, and the Corvettes, I seem to be able to bring them back a little bit. Obviously not Reece, who was in a league of one today, but yeah, the guys around me, behind me, it seemed to help to be in something a little bit different.
Well, congratulations on getting up to second place in the end in that race, and thanks for chatting to us at the end as well.
Thanks guys, it's great to be back, and hopefully I'll see you more often.
Absolutely, yeah, that's Jeremy Washington, second place here tonight from Catalonia in the endurance round, just in front of Daniel McCrone, who ends up on the podium as well for Team Max Booth. Daniel, welcome in, congratulations on a podium finish here tonight, 5th top 5 in the first 8 races of this season as well. As far as we saw though, it seemed like a pretty quiet race for you, or at least one of the quieter rounds that we've had so far. How was it from your perspective?
Yeah, thank you, mate. Yeah, it was. I had a good battle with Thomas for probably an hour there. We had a second or 2 apart, but yeah, bad luck to Danny. He, I don't think he'd done much prep and didn't really know how much fuel he needed to burn. But yeah, he had the pace all night. But yeah, I was doing a bit of fuel saving to get through, but yeah, I don't think he knew about that.
And how important was preparation in terms of that coming into tonight that you referenced there? Because there were sort of 2/3 of the field who seemed to be able to make it, and then maybe a third who couldn't. And as you say, you effectively gained this podium because your teammate Danny didn't have the fuel required there to do that race on 2 pit stops. How much preparation did it require, and how difficult was it to actually manage as well?
I knew the fuel goal that I had to hit to keep it only 2 stops. The one thing I wasn't sure about is what tyres to take at each stop because of the slow speeds on the outlap. So I only took left-hand tyres all night, were the guys in front. I think they took all four, so I did catch them on the out laps. But yeah, that was probably the hardest of what to do with the tyres throughout the stints.
Well, congratulations on managing those on the field to the end and indeed getting third tonight, and thanks for chatting to us at the end as well.
Beautiful, thank you, mate.
Thanks very much. That's Danny McCrone, who finishes third tonight here from Barcelona in the first endurance round of the season. These standings are going to be pretty out of whack because of the drop rounds, and indeed one of them being applied when they shouldn't have done. But anyway, Reece Wakefield will be on top of the standings, that much is certain. Not sure who against, actually, at this stage, but he will be on top of the standings. And based on what he made it sound like there, Jared, I think Dylan Shepherd might be missing a few more rounds this season, unfortunately, before the end, and so Wakefield assumes championship leader status, I think, and he's now the one to beat.
I'm pretty sure you and I had this conversation. It was the end of round 2, where we sort of spoke about needing a commentator's curse of some sort to keep Dylan Shepherd from absolutely blitzing this championship. Maybe we've done it, Ewan. Maybe we've managed to put enough real life commitments in the way for Dylan Shepherd that he's not going to make this an absolute walkover this season. I do wonder just how much more we're going to see of him this season. Hopefully we do get him back, because the performances that he extracts from that Audi are nothing short of absolutely mind-bending. But there's going to be a lot of drivers who are probably not missing his presence and are enjoying the fact that they've got an opportunity to perhaps be battling for one of those podium steps that they might have missed out on otherwise.
Yeah, I suspect there are, certainly. Well, that's just about it from us tonight in the Easy Motorcycles Pairs GT3 Championship. Big thanks to everyone for tuning into this first endurance round of the season here from Barcelona. Different type of racing, definitely, but each have their charm. We're back to the shortest format next week, the double alternate feature. 2 20-lap races at Sebring, so should be interesting to watch as get to the halfway stage. Indeed, with those 2 races, we'll be live same time, same place on this channel with that. But from myself, Ewan O'Leary and Jared Cole, it's goodbye from Barcelona. We'll see you 1 week's time in Florida Sebring. Goodbye for now.